emotion. Emotion is much more complicated than that, but it is a very key aspect of who we are as people. So having the opportunity to use this as an interface is a very, very important movement forward in terms of how we work with our machines. We've been for...
안녕하세요. 토크살롱 시청자 여러분, 서울 스피커스 뷰로의 알렉스입니다. 올 한 해를 뒤돌아보면 엄청난 격변의 시기가 아니었냐 생각이 드는데요. 우크라이나와 러시아의 전쟁이 종전되기도 전에 이스라엘과 하마스 간의 새로운 전쟁이 발발했고, 중국과 미국 역시 기술과 경제에 있어서 보이지 않는 전쟁을 이어가고 있는 등 지정학적인 불확실성이 계속 커지고 있습니다. 반면 기술에 있어서는 오픈 AI나 엔비디아 같은 빅테크 기업이 놀라운 성과를 보여주고 있는 등 우리 미래에 대한 기대가 더 커지고 있는데요. 오늘 이 자리에는 2023 뉴시스 포럼 10년 후 한국 기조연사 리처드 용크님을 모셨는데요. 이런 복잡한 우리 사회에 던지는 해안을 들어보도록 하겠습니다. Hello, Mr. Yonck. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Alex. A pleasure to be here. My name is Richard Yonck. I'm a futurist based in Seattle, Washington, in the United States. I work with clients, write books and articles, and I speak with audiences all about different aspects about the future, particularly about emerging technologies, specifically or most notably artificial intelligence, keeping up with not just where we are today, but where that technology is going to go tomorrow. Not just in terms of capability, but in terms of how it might impact society, how it might lead to unintended consequences or problems that we don't want in society.
I know that you have two great books. One is The Heart of the Machine and the other one is The Future Minds. On your books, you just introduced some concepts saying the emotion AI. Mm-hmm. As my understanding, the emotion AI, it means that AI will recognize and react appropriately to the human emotion. Mm-hmm. Could you introduce something more about emotion AI?
Absolutely. The field of emotion AI really starts out in mid-1990s and is a technology that utilizes various sensors to be able to read different aspects of human emotion, from the visuals of the face, to sounds of voice, even aspects of gesture and so forth. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, it assigns what it probably thinks you're feeling emotionally. This is a very, very hard problem. It's not something that is simply you can just label emotion. Emotion is much more complicated than that, but it is a very key aspect of who we are as people. So having the opportunity to use this as an interface is a very, very important movement forward in terms of how we work with our machines. We've been for 75 years developing computers where we develop interfaces that let us work more and more naturally with our computers. So now today we use what are called natural user interfaces, where we might touch a screen or speak to an assistant, an Alexa or what have you, a system being able to recognize what we might be feeling or needing based on our emotions is actually a very potentially useful way to apply this technology. Definitely has application potentially in a lot of different industries. It's still very early days. You were referencing some of the work of Eckhart, I believe, where the idea was to label the different types of emotion that are supposedly universal among people, and it's a little more complicated than that, they've found. But the ability to use this for certain purposes, it was originally, in the early days while it was being developed, started being used in market analysis, different types of audience response, to be able to have a better refined or granular sense of how people were responding literally on a microsecond by microsecond basis to, say, an advertisement on a television commercial. And by doing so, to be able to make changes to the ad in order to elicit the desired response that the advertiser wanted. So this is a very useful potential application. In writing the book and speaking with researchers, doing different research work for it, I did find a lot of different projects and applications in education, in the medical field, potentially in different types of entertainment and so forth. So there's a range of ways that it can and will be eventually used. At the same time, we're moving into a time when people are worried about various aspects of data privacy, the privacy of their lives being out in the world and having cameras looking at them. This is very concerning. So it's a very complex developing situation.
So we have some kind of the concept saying that strong AI, AGI, super intelligence. So how do you expect of the strong AI?
Great question. It's very complex, really. Strong AI is the idea of a computer system that is able to equal or surpass human level of intelligence. And this is something that's been part of science fiction for a long time. And it's becoming more and more approaching as a reality. We're not there yet. ChatGPT, for instance, they think, oh my gosh, it's here, it's real. But these are tricks still. We tend to anthropomorphize as we deal with robots, as we deal with the simulants that you were referring to and so forth. The closer they are to seeming a little bit like us, the more we're willing to kind of make that leap and say, oh, it must be conscious, it must have awareness. And it isn't necessarily the case. In the case of ChatGPT, still very early days, as I may have mentioned during today's presentation, it really is a new form of information management. That's what ChatGPT is. That's what we've really done. We have taken, and the intelligence we see is a reflection of ourselves. The internet, over the past 20, 30 years, has been a creation of all of humanity, has poured ourselves onto the internet. The models that are being generated that underlie things like ChatGPT are based on all of that. It's simply taken all of our knowledge and reflected it back on us. That's why it seems so human, because it is us, but it doesn't have awareness yet. It doesn't have a capability for creative thought. It doesn't have the ability to introspect. It's part of what will eventually happen, but we're not there yet. It's really an interesting time because in this way, we are more and more vulnerable going forward. A term like liar suggests intent. The ChatGPT doesn't have intent because it can't plan like that. It's a statistic. When it comes up, what we're calling hallucination is a great term that seems to capture what is happening, but it's not really hallucinating. What it's doing is it's finding the closest answer based on an aggregation of data and information. And when it does it, it gives that answer, and it just doesn't happen to always be right. It presents it as if it's right because of how they've structured the model. But it's not hallucination in the sense that we think of. Again, it's another way of applying the human to the object.
I see. Also, even the word hallucination has some kind of the personal intention that it presents. Right, exactly. My curiosity is how can we survive in my business, in my industry? And you also say that how will we reimagine the innovation ecosystem of tomorrow? So could you give us a little more about that one?
Human beings have always innovated. That is essentially how we have created literally our entire world. We can't necessarily keep doing it in the slightly haphazard way that we've done it in the past. The world is changing too rapidly. It's too global. It's too challenging to keep up with everybody else if we're not being very structured about how we approach the ecosystem that is behind innovation. Innovation is made up of many, many, many parts. It's not just a single inventor sitting down and imagining something creative. It's about an education system. It's about an entire knowledge base that precedes that person. It's about the finance that underlies the investment that goes into the new company, the new invention, the research labs, the regulators, all of the public sector. All of these are parts of that ecosystem, and the parts that don't necessarily operate as efficiently or effectively can hold back the entire thing. It's a question of understanding where the weak points are, trying to recognize that there are better ways to create a innovation, to create a world that represents what we want to live in, not just let it happen and hope that it's going to be a good future. We want to actually be active in making that happen.
네, 오늘은 세계적인 미래학자 리처드 용크를 모시고 인공지능이 우리 사회에 어떤 영향을 미칠지에 대한 부분과 또 우리가 계속 살아남기 위해서 어떻게 혁신적인 변화를 해야 되는지에 대한 이야기를 나눠보았습니다. 오늘 리처드 용크의 메시지가 더 강한 여러분의 내일을 만드는 데 힘이 되시기를 바라며 오늘 여기서 인터뷰를 마치겠습니다. 그럼 다음에 더 좋은 컨텐츠로 찾아올게요. 감사합니다.